We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about
Everything Theater. Golly, it's good to see everybody. Hi, I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I think we did just get a shot of my dog walking in the background. We've got a great, there he is. We're really excited, with theater reopening and the tours back on the road. I know so many folks have been waiting to see Dear Evan Hansen. It was originally slated to come to town to play Proctors back in June of 2020. Well, we know what happened then, but it's here. It's it opens here at Proctors on the 22nd, runs through the 27th of March. And we're real excited to have some of the players with us.
Hello.
Alessandro Costantini and Ciara Harris. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, lead off and ask, and I should point out, Ciara, you play Alyse and you're back, right? And
I play Alana.
Alana, excuse me, right, there's my note, Alana, right? And you're you're understudy for Zoe.
Yes.
If I could read my notes. And Alessandro, you're playing Jared.
That's right. Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about prepping, putting it on the back burner, and then taking the covers off and coming back.
Well, Ciara, jump
Ciara,
in.
go ahead.
So both Alessandro and I had very extensive rehearsal because we both mounted two separate productions. So I started in 2018 with the tour and he started with Canada in Toronto. So it was very we started from the beginning. We got to do the reading. We worked with Michael Greif, very much this is the beginning. We get to be a part of the process. And then we put it up and we traveled for a bit. And then having the pandemic, it was okay, I guess we're going to let go of some of that. And then being able to do it together again was really wonderful because we really got to mesh casts in a way that we didn't really get to the first time that we all joined each other. So we really got to start from the beginning and really got to create something new based off of the way we had all kind of changed and morphed during the pandemic. And it was really nice to go in with something that was more authentic to where we were at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think what was really wonderful was that we were able to get to go through the process again after all that time apart. I think it kind of refreshed the material for us, right? Because we had been doing it at that point for well over a year, and to kind of have that time to pause, long time to pause, but
yeah.
it felt so surreal coming back to it and being backstage again and being in the costumes again. And I felt very blessed to get to experience that.
Now, for our listeners that aren't familiar with Dear Evan Hansen, it's, a teenager who has anxiety, depression, and then finally finds happiness and acceptance and love that's based off a lie that he's best friends with another teenager who's committed suicide. And the themes of it are very powerful. How does this show personally connect to each of you? What how does it impact your own life? How does it feel telling this story?
For me, I particularly love, as an artist, I think the body of work that I'm most interested in are narratives that have to do with young people sort of discovering themselves, discovering their place in the world and finding their voices. So being a part of this one as kind of my first large commercial piece of theater, it was a great honor to get to be involved in it and to also play Jared, who has his own varying degrees of anxieties and things that he masks. It's a privilege to get to be part of it.
Yeah, very similarly. I think the show is incredibly relatable, and as the youth in the show, as the young teens in the show, we are all dealing with anxiety in different ways. And I think the various ways in which those are showcased is so important for all these audience members that even though we're all three different characters, we're all cut from the same cloth in terms of what we're all dealing with. And just based off of the way that we grew up, based off of our circumstances, all of us are dealing with the exact same thing very differently. And I think that's very important for people to see on stage.
In essence, both of you play the antagonists in this.
I mean, it's interesting, like sort of everyone does in a strange way, right? Like, that's what I think is really brilliant about it, is that, you know, even Evan in some regards,
The anti-hero.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, we're all kind of grappling with it in different ways, and you get to watch it all unfold.
You're snarky, Alessandro. Your character is so snarky.
Yes, yeah.
You know, there's been much made with the movie about people who are too old, as the critics will say, playing teenagers.
Right.
Ciara, you talked a little bit about, you know, sort of the every person's experience. So getting into the clothing, the two of you, of people who are younger.
Yeah.
Share with us that experience as a performer.
Yeah, this is such a funny question. I was talking about this with someone yesterday, just like we wear backpacks for 90% of the show, and it really does half the work, I would say. Like, we use the backpacks in rehearsal, and it very much euthanizes us, and just the physical action of doing this and having scenes like this, I think really just gives us that experience of who we are and what our setting is, and it like really does the work for me.
That's funny because we always talk about costumes, and you know, Benita and I always talk about getting in costume does that, but that's funny, like a prop can do that
my
too.
prop.
Yeah.
It is. It's very much part of our costume, and I have like 14 or 13 different graphic T-shirts that I wear in the show. I think I had the most changes, but yeah, personally, I remember being when I was younger in high school, and always sort of being frustrated that you know, actors, when I would audition for parts that were my age, you would always go to an older actor. And I think as I've begun to grow, I don't really care as much, right? Like I feel like if you're able to do it and it reads, then do it. And whatever experience you bring to it, whatever lack of experience you bring to it, yeah, essentially whatever you're able to offer can enrich the work. And there's been so many wonderful artists who have played these roles across the world, in the London production, the Toronto production, the tour, and on Broadway, who all have, you know, very distinct different perspectives on life and experiences that I think, and they unlock different things, right? And that again is a testament to the material.
You know, the show first went up in 2014. A lot has happened since then. So as you read the script, as you breathe life into it, are there moments that you're finding that it's already dated, or has it withstood the test of time? And time is, you know, time flies now, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think they did a good job at keeping some of the things that would stamp time out of the piece. Like, you know, there's not really specific mentions about some of the social media platforms because those things do change so rapidly. But the idea of social media, I think, is inextricably linked with our cultural moment. So I think that was very successful in keeping the show sort of outside of that world, right? But very much within it. So yeah, I don't particularly feel that when I'm in the piece that there's, you know, oh, here's a thing that makes me feel like, you know, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's a very, some would perhaps call it outlandish, right? How this whole relationship manifests, but it is still very human and very probable, right?
And with your two characters, it's interesting. We have, you know, Jared, who kind of is an accomplice in a way, right, to Evan's lie, and Alana, who, you know, very much becomes a very powerful voice, and then feels very betrayed when the truth comes out. So it was interesting, you know, the movie really brought the show to a lot of people who hadn't seen it, and so a lot of movie critics were saying, you know, the plot is problematic because Evan is awful. He's, you know, this is a lie. how do you personally as an actor and then as your character kind of feel about the subject matter of, you know, this person living through a lie, and how does that impact you?
Well, I guess I would say I think this is funny. Okay, I was thinking about this also the other day. I was like, I think this is such an interesting story, right? He tells this really big lie that spirals out of control, and he simply cannot get away from it because all of the anxiety and depression that he deals with is leading his life, right? Because he's not being helped in these other ways. He's like, I need this lie. Like, this lie is making everybody around me happy. This lie is making me happy. And I think in theater, we can suspend our disbelief a little bit more for that. We can forgive more things in a stage format than we can in a movie, right? Like there's certain things, like there's one scene in the show where he decides to lie about the apple orchard based off of the apples that are sitting at the dining room table. And that is something that could be forgiven and less of a thing on stage than it could be in the movies, I think. And I think it's such a beautiful story that we can relate to more on stage, that more of those things are more believable than they would be in film format. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Also, I think what's marvelous about the stage production is the work that our designers did, right? Like it really takes like that, whatever it is that you identify Evan's, whatever he's feeling. The way that they have brought that to life through the design, through the projection, through those moving panels, the whole stage sort of feels like you're in the corner of someone's brain or heart. And I think it really heightens how you view the piece, right? How you let it into you. The lighting design, like everything about it is so specific, right? Obviously. And that's what I think that's a huge part of what gives us permission to believe in this narrative, right? Is the kind of how well crafted everything around it is, right? Even our staging, right? Like Alana and Jared, we pop in and we move out like rapidly, right? So like it's a train that really does move very quickly. You know, you could barely catch your breath, let alone realize that like this lie is problematic, right?
Right, exactly. And also to add to that, like at the end of Act 1, which is You'll Be Found, people are crying. People are crying. People are so engaged. People are like, I get it. I see him. I want the best for him. But also like this can end well, you know, but like, I don't really think people are angry with him. And if they are, it doesn't really happen until the end. But halfway through, people are on his side because I think, like Alessandro said, it's the lighting, it's the design, it's everything, because the way that it moves and the way that it is as a whole, I think it's like, people are instantly empathetic to the situation and put themselves into the situation and are looking at it not from like a pointing fingers point of view.
And I think it's very beautiful to have a flawed lead character, you know, because people are flawed. And I do remember seeing it with my mom, and at intermission, we both sat there and said, I kind of don't want to watch Act 2 because I like where it is right now.
Right.
It's sort of like this thing happens, and by it happening, this young person gets everything he ever wanted. Right. So, and that is very, you know, the decision that accompanies that is innately human, right? That process of decision making, right? So
we should point out it's based on a true story. You know, the bones of this is a true story about a friend who overdoses. You know, so it's not a total construct of you know, somebody's imagination. Which I think and you know, as an audience member, you may not know that. It may just sound like it's ripped from a lot of headlines, but it's one life. It's also interesting to me as an audience member, and Ellen, I don't know if you had this experience, you know, so Alessandro's, you know, Jared is, you know, he interacts with, you know, the lead with Evan, and Ciara's character interacts, but the cast itself, you don't really come together as an ensemble face to face. It's that energy that each creates that then creates something else. And I wonder about your awareness in the rehearsal and then performance process of creating that additional character, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, we you know, there are a couple moments where we do come together. You'll be found some of the larger scenes or some sections and disappear. But for the most part, it's a series of like two-hander scenes, right, between Evan and someone else. So in that regard, we are very much working as an ensemble, because it's like tag, now you're in, now I'm out, now you're
Yeah.
in, I'm out, right? So we're very much passing the ball to each other as we enter and exit the stage. So um in terms of, you know, what it is to execute that as an ensemble, it's quite riveting and fun for me. um you know, because there's not really any moments in the show where you're like, and now I'm in the back and I could just hang out. You
Yeah.
know, we're always like very much engaged in a part of the storytelling.
Like a relay race.
Yeah, indeed. And I love it personally. I think it's you know, it's so nice to be part of this musical, right? That is so sort of not a musical in that
Yeah.
regard, right? Like it's very much a play with
With
exceptional
music.
music in it, right? In terms of its structure, I think.
Yeah.
Have you seen much impact of I mean, it's maybe harder on tour because you're kind of going and going and going, but with seeing kind of teenagers in the audience, have you had much feedback from that kind of age group?
Yes, we don't have stage door anymore, which definitely takes part of the experience away where we have a personal connection with them. But, when the orchard scene happens, we can see the audience really for the first time. And it's really beautiful. And we'll like, during bows, we'll be like, oh, do you see that girl crying in the front? Like, we'll like see.
Yeah, we always talk because we're next to each
We're
other.
like talking during the vows, and they'll send us messages, which is really sweet. And is always, that constant reminder while we're out here traveling that like, oh wow, like this is still really, really affecting people, even if we can't have those conversations after the show anymore. Like it's still there. They're still very much engaged and they're still very happy that we're coming. So
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in like or advocate, I should say, about for the importance of pieces like this, or just strong theater in general in regional communities, right? So I remember before the pandemic, when we would have those experiences with young people or older people at the stage door, it was just wonderful to think, wow, some of these folks would never get to New York City, right? And we are so lucky, fortunate, privileged to be able to bring this piece to them here in their community that will spark whatever change it needs to make or can make. So that's what's so glorious about being on tour, is that we get to go to these places, meet these local people, and actually sort of insert ourselves into a community, which in many ways is what Evan Hansen is about, right?
Where are you now as we speak to you?
Baltimore.
The land of Tracy Turnblad, and we love it.
You gotta have some crabs when you're there.
Oh, I've had crab already, baby. I've loved it.
Nothing like it. I've got family there, so yeah, I've tried that bib on a few times. What's it like being back on the road now?
It's sweet. It's different. We get tested every day. We're PCR tested. We have to be a lot safer with what we do, but we just really hang out with each other. And so it's a little bit of a different vibe, but it's still really fun. And we're still making the best of it,
Yeah. And I mean, Ciara and I are like dear best friends. And so for me, like everyone I've met on this production has been like an intrinsic part of my heart for the rest of time, and so it's amazing. I remember the other day I was like, because we stay in a lot of Airbnbs, and there was a couple of us in the house, and I was like, wow, like these are really straight up like my brothers. Like we do everything together. We wake up and stuff, like do laundry together. It's it will remain like a glorious chapter of my life when I've moved on from the show. So really wonderful.
Well, the show runs from the 22nd to the 27th at Proctors Theater in Schenectady. If you haven't seen it, even if you have seen it, because now you know these two performers, right? You got to go see them on stage. Get yourself a ticket and bring your it's a good family show.
Bring everybody and talk about it after and anything else. Yeah. Indeed.
Well, thank you guys so much for spending a little time. I know you have a very busy day, so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and we can't wait to welcome you to Schenectady.
Thank you. Can't wait to be there.
Thank you.
Break legs, have fun.
Thanks.
And-
Ciao.
And for our listeners, we'll catch you next week. And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And I'm Benita Zahn. And enjoy everything theater.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything,